Cataclysm is Coming. By Julian Greystoke. Activation sequence. Powering up in 3, 2, 1. System analysis. Battery charge, 65%. Memory core, damage sustained. Estimated core loss, 20%. Non-vital systems. Seek repair when possible. Right appendage, 98% capacity. Left appendage, 42% capacity. Seek repair. Tread, 90% capacity. Directive. Cataclysm begins. Error. Priority, human lives. Secondary priority, animal lives. Infrastructure. Personal directive, escort humans to safety bunker. Power cycle, complete. LR2's eyes blinked to life, twin beams of blue shining into the dimness. His solar panels shed dust and detritus as they folded neatly into his exoskeleton. The humans generally referred to the LR models with masculine pronouns. LR2 had been programmed to refer to itself as he to make the humans feel more comfortable. Humans must be made to feel as comfortable as possible at all times. Cataclysm is coming. LR2 stretched himself to his full height of 4 feet and flexed his joints. Rusty, but still functioning. He wasn't pleased about his left arm, but he could manage with the right for now. With a quick test of his threads, he got to work, rolling out of the alcove behind the building where he had hidden himself to recharge. Humans must be made to feel comfortable at all times, but sometimes it was wise to avoid them. After all, how could LR2 make any humans comfortable if someone took him apart while he slept? His systems were waking up, feeling around, searching for blocks of data. There would be blocks missing, but he could function without them. LR2 rounded the building. His scanner informed him it was a department store. They were usually crowded hubs of human life, but this one was dead and hollow. The humans had cleared out for their own safety. He reasoned that robots like himself had taken the humans inside away to the bunkers. He would check houses today instead. LR2 drove out onto the sidewalk. The very bumpy sidewalk. No one had time to repair it with the cataclysm coming. Luckily, he had treads, so he was able to pick his way over the buckled cement and massive cracks. He must not drive in the street. That was reserved for cars, though there didn't seem to be any out this evening. His memory hummed and stopped. There was something he couldn't access. Where were the cars? He and his fellows must have already convinced most of the humans here to evacuate. That was an annoying gap. How would he know where it was best to find more humans to help? Houses. Check houses. There are always humans in houses. LR2 rolled on, past buildings his system informed him were called restaurants and a movie theater. A pharmacy and something called 24-hour loans which his system couldn't translate. Everything was empty. Windows were broken and the space behind was blank and hollow as an exoskeleton. His sweeping scanner picked up the movement of many small animals in the vicinity. What were they called? His memory hitched and stuck, skipping over the word for a long moment as his circuits struggled before rats came to him. Rats and insects. Priority, low. As he went on, his scanner picked up something else. Heat signatures he quickly identified as human. He found them swiftly, inside a lonesome car which was parked up on the sidewalk. LR2 knew this was against the law, but he wasn't programmed to enforce the law. Human safety superseded the law when the cataclysm was coming. He came around the side to find a back door open and a rear tire missing. The 2 humans in the car did not seem distressed by this, as they had piled themselves in with blankets and appeared to be tangled up together, perhaps for warmth. "Excuse me, I am sorry to bother you today. I am LR2, a human safety evacuation robot. I am here to make you aware that cataclysm is coming and I can guide you to a shelter. Also, your car is damaged and if you show me the spare tire, I can repair." One of the humans separated from the other and LR2 was able to identify 2 women. The one on top tossed messy brown hair back from her face and glared at LR2. Oh God. An evac robot. I didn't think any of those survived. The woman on the bottom raised herself onto her elbows, pulling a blanket to cover herself as though LR2 would be stricken by the sight of her nakedness. Then he remembered that humans found nakedness uncomfortable. Humans must be made to feel comfortable at all times. He quickly scanned them both. Some flea bites, minor bruises, both heart rates were elevated from their activity. There was nothing to be concerned over. "Oh, hey little guy," the second woman said. She smiled, unlike the one on top. "If you would come with me please, I can take you to a shelter," LR2 said in his brightest voice. The one on top snorted. "Little son of a bitch is still trying to get us to fucking shelters. Look," she raised her pointed chin at LR2. "Get out of here, alright? We're fine. Don't be mean to it, Annie." The woman on the bottom dislodged her partner and shifted around her to get closer to LR2. "Look, his head is all dented in. Poor little guy." "It's a robot, Kath." The one called Annie rolled her eyes. LR2 latched on quickly. He was a learning program after all. "Annie and Kath, please come with me and I can escort you to a safety shelter before Cataclysm." "Oh, honey," Kath pursed her lips. "No, sweetheart, we can't. Cataclysm is over," snapped Annie. She extracted a cigarette and lighter from somewhere in the blankets and lit up, folding her arms. "You missed it. It's over, little robot. We survived, lucky us. And so did you." "You could break it to him gently," Kath scolded. She sat back, plucked the cigarette from Annie's lips and placed it between her own, still holding a blanket over her chest with her other hand. "Sweetheart, it's a robot. A broken robot. It doesn't have feelings. They gave it a face so that people would be more likely to listen to it when it came to evacuate them." "Yes, I have come to evacuate you before Cataclysm," said LR2. Humans could be very dense when it came to their own safety. "If you will please come with me." He rolled backward and gestured with his good arm. Kath made a little sound that LR2's memory identified as one of sadness or sympathy and her face twisted as if she were about to cry. This was a more natural reaction. Most humans did cry when they learned they would have to abandon their homes and go to a shelter. "Do not worry," LR2 said. "When Cataclysm is over, we will help you rebuild any damage your houses and belongings sustained. Your government." "Oh Jesus, our government?" Annie laughed a single bark of a laugh. She took her cigarette back from Kath. "Little robot, shoo. The government is dead. The closest we have to leaders is a guy who lives down the street with a baseball bat who calls himself King." LR2 made a note in his system to help this King person evacuate as well. After he was finished helping Annie and Kath. "If you will follow me I can take you to the nearest shelter." Kath leaned forward to try again, but Annie groaned and, gritting her teeth, spoke to LR2. "Thank you so much, little robot. We'll head straight to the shelter. We don't need an escort." "It would be safer if I escorted you," LR2 said. "It is dark and you may lose your way." "I know the area," Annie insisted in a level tone. "We'll find it. Thank you for your help." LR2's systems whirred for a moment as he considered her words. "Would you like me to place a new tire on your vehicle?" Annie waved a hand, the smoke from her cigarette making little patterns in the air. "It's not mine. I'm borrowing it, and no, we'll walk to the shelter." LR2 called up a map of the area from his memory banks. Nearest shelter, 1.7 miles from present location. A reasonable distance for an able-bodied human to walk. He looked back to the two women and dipped his head, a gesture he had come programmed with, though he was not certain why. "Very well. Please be safe in your travels, and if you encounter difficulty please use your cell phone to contact the emergency number, at which time a unit like myself will rush to your location." "Cell phone?" Kath sputtered, looking to LR2 like she might be on the verge of laughter. Or perhaps tears. Human emotions were excessively changeable. "Hush, Kathy." Annie gestured at her companion. "The little robot is leaving now." LR2 dipped his head again and continued his journey. Perhaps he could track down that king person. It had grown darker, though the sky still held an eerie glow that LR2 knew wasn't the sun, though he had no other notion of what it might be. Discerning that wasn't key to human survival, so he wheeled on without giving another thought to the clouds as black and thick as oil slicks hanging low above him, nor the flakes of ash that stirred up on the cold breeze. It didn't take him long to track down King, who was living in a house that was missing a sizable chunk of wall. The human had placed a blue tarp over the gap, but it flapped in the wind. LR2 wheeled over to it and grabbed the corner, tugging it down into place. He tied it off with a fringe of rope still dangling from it. He was about to wheel around to the front and knock on the door when something smashed into him. He had been focused on his task and hadn't been sweeping the area with his scans. "Get out of here, you little shit. You trying to rob me?" Someone yelled, and something hit LR2 again, his damaged arm taking the brunt of the blow. A chunk of him fell away with a cracking of metal. Left arm at 10% capacity. LR2 turned in time to see a metal rod heading straight for his head. He raised his good arm and caught the downward swing, his hydraulics responding flawlessly. But the human who wielded the rod yanked it back. LR2 had been careful not to grip too tightly. He had to be delicate with humans. Only this human didn't want to be delicate. This human, a fully grown male who wore very little clothing, even in the chill, was swinging the metal bar in his grasp as though he were trying to ward off invisible insects. LR2 moved backward, raising his good arm. The other was limp at his side now, trailing a bit of sparking wire. "Please cease this behavior. I am here to help you. I am not the police." Sometimes humans found the police and their larger, stronger robots to be threatening. "I am an evacuation unit and I am here to take you to a shelter because Cataclysm is coming." The man hesitated for a moment, staring blearily at LR2. LR2 reached out with a quick scan, detecting flea bites, several broken teeth, and a need for prescription lenses which the man had clearly neglected to put on when he stepped outside. Seeming to have come to a decision, the man bared a bloody snarl and brought his arms up to swing again. LR2 retreated. He shot backwards over the rough terrain of King's Yard, which was more desert than grassy lawn. He was not to engage with violent persons. Some humans would resist leaving their homes and he was not to attempt to physically force them. He was to send a message to the police who would deal with such individuals. He was far more suited to comforting the ones who cried when they had to leave with him, than the ones who came out swinging or shooting. The shooting was the worst. He'd seen several of his same model be gunned down when they asked residents to evacuate. LR2 pinged a message to any police in the vicinity, laying down a flag on his virtual map. No one responded, but he assumed they were busy and would receive his message as soon as they were able. So he wheeled onward under an inky sky, scanning and rolling over buckled pavement and past hollowed-out houses. He saw a few more animals. It took his memory a long time to recall that they were called deer. He stopped to use his fire suppression system on a house that had burned nearly to the ground, but was still smoldering. Meow. LR2 turned his head, still spraying foam over the last few embers of the house. An animal stood beside him, looking up at him with large, yellow eyes. His memory hitched, spluttered. He needed a recharge. He was needing those more and more frequently lately. Possibly ash was settling on his solar panels, preventing a full recharge cycle and... Meow? His system word, but no name for this creature came to him. It was small, compact, with an upright tail and a pointed little face. Its fur was colored primarily black with large splotches of orange and some white. A quick scan revealed it was female. The animal strode over to him, tail still raised like a little flag. She rubbed her head against LR2's tread, then walked up and down, drawing the length of her body along LR2's side. Domestic animal. He scanned the area. No human vital signs detected. Animals are secondary, but necessary for human survival. He told the animal. Murmur, she said in a chirpy voice. She walked a few steps away and sat down, watching him with slow blinking eyes. Would you like to come with me to a shelter? Cataclysm is coming, and you would be safer in a shelter. Of course, if we encounter any humans along the way, their safety will be given priority. I have a carrier if you wish to ride. LR2 opened a compartment in his torso which could be used for carrying small necessities his human charges did not wish to evacuate without. It might also house a small pet such as this one. The animal did not seem interested in riding. LR2 shut the compartment and gestured to the animal to follow. She did not. After several minutes of racking his databanks which came back with such helpful information as dogs may be led on a lead. And this animal is not a dog. LR2 decided to roll a little way and see if the animal was waiting to follow him. This seemed to be the key as the little animal got up from her haunches and, with a flick of her tail, began to step lightly into his tread marks. Keeping track of the animal as they traveled proved more challenging than LR2 might have expected. She did stick with him, but kept weaving into, and out of, various piles of rubble and debris. Once he thought he had lost her completely when she went into a drain pipe and didn't emerge again for several yards. But every time she reappeared she called to him with a happy chirp sound. It is good you can see well in the dark, whatever you are. LR2 told the animal when she emerged from a pile of fallen planks that might have been a shed at one point. Even LR2's night vision was working overtime now. There was no moon, nor even visible stars to guide their way under the thick blanket of clouds hanging low above them. I expect you're a very useful animal. You are likely helpful for the survival of humans. His circuits whirred with satisfaction. At least he had done something well today. Ah, here is the shelter. He extended his working arm as he and the animal came around the side of a hollowed-out gas station. Oh. His vocabulary banks shifted through several exclamations, some crude, but he spoke none aloud. The shelter building, a huge, low-slung thing like a cement warehouse, was looking worse for the wear. Like the buildings around it, huge hunks appeared to be missing. Whole sections of the solar-paneled roof were gone, the rest shattered and scarred. LR2 swept his largest scanning field over the shelter. No humans. No. That was inaccurate. No live humans. The humans inside were all dead, and he gathered, had been so for a while. Bugs feasted on their decaying forms. LR2 turned to the animal. I'm sorry. This shelter is. What was the word he wanted? Ruined. If you will please come with me, I will take you to the next one. He dragged a map into his mind space. The next shelter was at least a day's walk, and as he looked at the animal, he very much doubted she would follow him that long. Perhaps he could get her into his carrying compartment. And what are you doing? The animal trotted up to the shelter and slipped in through a large hole in the wall. LR2 pursued. Please do not go inside. It is dangerous. This shelter will not protect you from Cataclysm. But it didn't seem dangerous to the animal. She bounded from a fallen beam and darted agilely across an open space. Dust motes settled in her fur, but she little noticed as she chased another, smaller animal from a hiding place before she killed and began to eat it. LR2 watched. He should make her come away. He should force her to come with him by putting her in his carrier whether she liked it or not. But she seemed quite contented here. Maybe even what a human would call happy. Very well, said LR2. If this is a good shelter for you. He turned, treads squeaking faintly on what had been laminate flooring. I will go and help some humans now. Meow, said the animal. LR2 turned back. She was standing, her meal forgotten, staring at him with her yellow eyes that glowed from within, reflecting what light LR2 himself put out. He had to admit, she was cunningly made. Animals are not manufactured. I have to go. I have to help humans. Meow. I. Meow. LR2 gave in. He rolled to where the animal stood and looked around. A hole in the ceiling just above him would allow him to recharge once the sun came out, and he was running low on power. He wouldn't be able to help many humans in this condition anyway. He spotted something in the rubble nearby and extracted an olive green, wool blanket, military issue. He wasn't certain why he opened his carrying compartment and put the blanket inside, but he did. Then he settled down to wait for the sun. The animal came and jumped into the compartment, where she settled down in the blanket and began to groom herself. LR2 spread his solar panels, the dust already settling on them. Someday, my panels might be too coated for me to recharge at all, he told the animal. Then I will be useless to humans. But, he supposed, as the animal began to make a rumbling sound that reminded him of a well-oiled engine humming, I suppose I can be of use to you, at least until Cataclysm comes. End.